Kia ora Year 10. This video is going to go through the task we looked at in maths today about the money being raised for Runathon. But since we're only 2 days out from the real Runathon, I just wanted to do one last plug for doing some fundraising. So I've put a link in there that you can see to go through to the World Vision page. So make sure you get out there and try and raise some money before Friday. And remember, if you buy the Runathon t-shirt, you can wear that to school on Friday and have a mufti day. Right, on to the question. So this question is all about how many goats we can buy using the money donated from this year's Runathon. Now you'll see that obviously these numbers are made up because the number of students at Dubsea is way too low. So let's first of all read the question and then work out how we're going to break it down. So we're told really clearly that we have to estimate the number of goats that can be purchased using the money donated from this year's Runathon. So you can already see we're going to have money coming in, and then we're going to have how many goats that can buy. So where's the money coming in going to come from? Well, we've got 1,200 students at Wellington College to the nearest 100 who will take part in Runathon. Then we've got 4 categories for how much money they raise. And they're rough categories. So it's estimated that 3/7 of them will raise between $10 and $30. 35% will raise between $30 and $50. 3/20 will raise between, that should say between, not over, between $50 and $80, and the rest will average $120. So we know that these numbers have got to add up to 1,200 students, right? So that's the first part. We have to work out how much money is going to come in. Then we have to figure out where the money is going to go. The money raised will be split in the ratio 2 to 4 to 5 between buying goats, education, and infrastructure improvements. So we're going to come back to that. So we're going to use our skill of splitting an amount using a ratio there. Next, we're told the current exchange rate for Tanzania is 1 Tanzanian shilling is equal to this much here. Now, this task was written before we switched to doing Runathon for our village in Cambodia. So that's why it's about a different country. And in this case, we're told that back in 2016, one goat cost 45,000 shillings, but that prices have increased by 5% per year since then. I'm doing this assuming that we are now, right, that we're in 2021. So we've got 5 years of prices increasing by this percentage. Now, what do we have to do? Well, we have to do 2 things. We have to use that information to work out both the average number of goats that we can expect to purchase and the minimum number of goats. Then we have to discuss factors that would change our calculations and would affect your final answer. This bit here, I'm not going to do in this video because I'm just going to run out of time. So I'm going to go pretty slowly through the first 2 parts. We have to figure out, first of all, the average number of goats that we can expect to buy. And then we have to go back and figure out the lowest possible. In other words, the most conservative estimate. I'm going to break this into 2 parts for the average case. The first thing I'm going to do is figure out how much money is being raised. So this is the relevant information. So this 1,200 students thing means that it's to the nearest 100. That means that the lowest possible number of students is 1,200 take away 50. So 1,150 there and 1,250 there. When I'm working out the average case, I want to use the 1,200 number. Later on, I'm going to use the minimum number. Then we've got our 4 categories. 3/7 of them are going to raise between $10 and $30. I'm going to use the middle of each of these ranges for my average case, and I'm going to use the lower amount when I get to do the minimum. So what we need to do when we're doing this is to have some good headings that show us what we're working out. There are a lot of different ways you can do this. The first thing I'm going to do is do a bit of work looking at the number of students. 3/7 of our 1,200 is 514.2857 people. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to round that to 514 students. And I'm going to assume $20 each. But I'll come back and do those calculations next. Next, we've got the students in the next category. So we've got 35% raising between $30 and $50. So 35% is 0.35. So 0.35 times 1,200 gives me 420 students. No need to round that. Now that category, from $30 to $50, will earn, on average, 40 each. So I'm just going to take the middle of each one. What's next? I've got another fraction of 3/20 of the group will raise between $50 and $80. So 3/20 of 1,200 gives me 180 students. Right, so that range goes from 50 to 80. So the halfway mark here is 65. We're going to assume $65 each. Right, now what about the last category? Well, the rest will average $120. So these are the students who have gone all out to raise some money. But how many are there? Well, to work that out, we know that altogether we're assuming 1,200 students. And we've worked out the numbers for the other categories. So the rest is going to be 1,200 minus the other ones. So 514 plus 420 plus 180. That gives me 86 really high earning students. And they're going to make 120 each. Okay, so let's see how we're going on our structuring. Well, the first thing we've done is that we've worked out the number of students in each category. Now we're going to work out the income or the donations. So we're going to do another heading. And the heading is going to say something like donations. This is going to be very easy to calculate, right? So we're going to have 514 times $20. Then we'll have 420 who earn $40. Next, we've got 180 who earn on average $65. So they bring in donations of 11,700. And finally, we've got the 86 who earn or donate on average $120. That gives me a total of $49,100. Now I need to make it really clear what that is. So that's the total money raised. And that's assuming average numbers. Okay, so that's the first bit of the task done. Now we go back to the problem and we see that we have to figure out how much of that is going to go on goats and then how many goats we can buy. Okay, the money raised is going to be split in this ratio. So altogether we've got 11 parts. We add them up. Two ways to do this. One part will be the total donations divided by 11, and that gives me $4,463.64. So here we know that goats is 2 parts, so we just have to multiply that by 2. Now some of you will be going, oh yeah, there's a much faster way to do that, and I'll get to that in a sec. So 2 parts will be this times 2, so 2, let's see, this times 2, which is $8,927.27. Now look, I've done it to the nearest cent the whole way through. That was kind of silly. You could have rounded to the nearest dollar on the way. Now, the fast way to do that is to say that the goats total will be 2/11 of 49,100, which will get me the same answer, 8,927.27. Right, so that's what we've got to spend on the goats, but how much do they cost? So we need another heading. Might be time for a change of pen colour. What have we got? We'll do a sparkly pen. Right, goats, goat cost. Well, this is probably the trickiest bit in the whole thing. In 2016, a goat cost 45,000 shillings. So there we are, we've got 45,000 here, and that's increased by 5% every year. So we know that to increase by 5%, we multiply by 1.05. That gets me the 2017 price. So I need to do that until I get out to 2021. Now that bubble diagram is pretty babyish at this point. We've done those lots and lots. It still works, but a more efficient way to say this is to say 2021 price is going to be 45,000 times 1.05 to the power of 5. I'm just going to fix that up, make it a little bit easier to read. So this is the original price. It's gone up by 5% every year for 5 years. So that gives me a 2021 price of 57,432.67 shillings. But this is not much use to me because my earnings were in New Zealand dollars. So now what we have to ask is, we've got 1 shilling being worth a tiny bit of a New Zealand dollar. So one goat costs 57,432.67 times 0.00061 New Zealand dollars. That works out to be $35.03 in NZD. Now, if you're in my class, we talked about this briefly today while you were trying out this task. If you mucked that exchange rate calculation up and you tried dividing, I think you'd find that the goat costs several millions of dollars. So you should know at that point that you've done something wrong. That price for a goat, to me, looks kind of about right. So now we've just about finished. We know how much we've got to spend. It will be my total of this divided by the price. And that's going to give me 254.85 goats. I think you could intelligently argue both lots of rounding here because we're just estimating. But I'm going to say that we'll round that down. So assuming the average numbers of both people and donations, we can buy about 254 goats. Now, I've just got time to talk about how we're going to change things for the minimum case, and you can go through that yourselves. Right, so for the minimum case, I'm going to use 1,150 students, and that's the lower bound. Then in here, the numbers won't change, but the amounts will change. So when I worked that through, I ended up with total donations of 35,390, and when you work that through, you end up with 183 goats, and I've got 4 seconds left. Hope that was useful. I'll do another one soon.